All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Strobel, and I'm the Brooklyn Park City Manager. Thank you all for coming this evening, despite the tragic circumstances that have brought us all here this evening. Our hope for this joint Brooklyn Park and Champlin gathering is to create a space for community to connect, to support you in this time of healing, and share a brief public safety update and provide an opportunity to answer a few questions. Just a couple of logistical items as we get started here today. We are live streaming the event, so I want to make people aware of that. We do have bathrooms, men's room. If you go out and around the corner to the right is the men's room, and out and around the corner to the left is the women's room. And then if you have any food items, just please be conscious, because technically we're not supposed to have any in the room. For our program this evening, there will be remarks from Governor Tim Walz, Brooklyn Park Mayor Winston, and Champlin Mayor Sabis. So those will start shortly. We also have the Hennepin County COPE Community Response Team. There are folks over here. They'll be providing some guidance in the healing process for all of us and resources to take home. Those resources are out in the table, out in the lobby area. Finally, Chief Bruley and Chief Snyder will be providing a public safety update and answering some audience questions. So for folks who, when you came in, hopefully you got some cards. If you do have questions, please fill out the cards. We will be collecting those, so there'll be a moment where if you fill those out and pass those to the outer aisles and raise your hand, we will get those collected. We would appreciate that. So with that, I would like to welcome Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for pausing in this moment, and thanks to the folks up here, Mayor Sabis, Mayor Winston, and Chiefs Jay. I can tell you're well served by these folks. They were there from the beginning, and they've been there the whole time, making sure community safety, public safety was first and foremost, but looking out for their citizens. So I want to thank you all for that, to have your steady hand there and your vision. It's pretty hard, I think, for all of us. We know we're running into people and they're asking how we're doing, and my answer now is kind of day by day. This was a grievous wound that Minnesota experienced. The attack on public servants, and the death of Melissa and Mark, and the injuries to John and Yvette. There's the personal loss in this, and then there's the loss and the attacks of who we are in our communities. These are public servants that raised their hands and said they would serve, and they were just doing their job. And to have our sense of security taken from us and a sense of attack. And I say this, just the professions I've been in, I've worked with a lot of people, especially in legislating, and I can tell you with Melissa Hortman, I never ran into anybody more skillful at it. And that doesn't mean winning. It doesn't mean winning your way of things, so you got your ideas through. I mean more skillful at understanding how the system works and understanding that the only way this democracy works is everybody has to feel like they're a part of it and come in. And I watched her at times when she would tell me, when I was at wit's end, she would find another way to get things done. And I think that sense of service, that sense of democracy, and it was always predicated on respecting someone else's opinion, whether you disagreed with them 100%. And I think we all know we're in challenging times. We had this beautiful public servant, an incredible mom, the best dog mom you would ever find. I think we spent a lot more time talking about dogs than taxes when we were together, just because it's who she was, and there was that bright smile. And I just want to say the times that you come out of this to John and Yvette and Hope, the Hoffmans, when this whole story is said and done, the heroics of the Hoffman families no doubt saved lives, saved others across this, and the selflessness that you see exhibited, again, should be should lift us up. But I have to tell you, it's hard to find light in this moments. It's hard to find where the darkness ends, but Minnesotans have done this. We've seen these losses, we've been there, and we've come through it. And I would just like to say it seems so especially cruel that this was a very, very difficult legislative session. There's a lot of animosity to start it out, and it was so closely divided that I don't think any state has ever seen one this close. And yet, that leadership team, Democrats and Republicans, and with Melissa Hortman sitting at the center of it, figured out a way to reach a compromise, get it done, shake hands, and stand up together. And so an attack on trying to divide us, an attack of trying to take that from us, it won't work in Minnesota. This will stick with us. We won't forget. We're committed to making sure that we honor Speaker Hortman's legacy, that we remember, and Gwen and I were talking about this with Mark, the families sign up for this too, and they're a part of it. And an attack at someone's home to their family is terrifying. And it's my hope that Minnesotans have always been very civically engaged. We donate more money to charities than any other state. We actively are engaged in our communities. Tonight, it's a summer day, it's Friday. You came here. Some of you maybe knew the Hoffmans and the Hortmans personally. Some of you maybe never have met them. But it's your community, and you came. So the hard work starts. It's going to be a long haul. We're not going to be the same after this, but we can certainly strive to be better. And I say that as I look to see what we can do to make sure that we're talking about things together. So thank you all. I'm so very sorry for these communities' loss. These two legislators are giants. We lost one of them. Thank God. It sounds like Senator Hoffman will pull through this. But the communities, and I will just end with that, the sense of professionalism out of the folks sitting here in front, the sense of community and work that was done, the sense of care that was exhibited in the darkest hours when this crisis was still going on, the folks setting up here and your entire community was focused on protecting one another and lifting others up, and that is a testament to each of you and the communities. Our children are watching us. Our children are scared. They don't understand exactly what's going on, and they're going to watch how this modeled. I can tell you, like from my children's perspective, I would be damn proud to live in these communities. I would be proud as I am of Minnesotans standing together. So take care of one another. Keep an eye on neighbors a little bit here. Understand that this is going to be a grieving process, and there's folks out there to help too. So thank you all, and may Melissa and Mark rest in peace. Thank you.
So I do want to thank, Governor Walz's team and his wife for coming out to this event of healing. I want to say good evening to our Brooklyn Park and Champlin neighbors. For those who don't know, I'm Hollis Winston, mayor of the city of Brooklyn Park. I want to thank you all for gathering in this shared space of healing and resolve. I welcome every resident from across our cities, including our partners who have stood shoulder to shoulder with us over these difficult days. To the council members of both cities, I want to thank you. Your presence for residents has been a quiet but very essential lifeline. While our city staff, our police, our fire, and many other departments focus on the immediate tasks at hand, your presence has reminded us that local government is most powerful, most effective when it listens first and speaks second. When we talk about our law enforcement, I want to thank you all for responding so quickly. I think when we look at The resources our governor made, Commissioner Jacobson made, they made a number of resources immediately available, and our law enforcement immediately reacted and used those resources. I want to thank the FBI and federal level resources that helped as well. But I also want to thank the county resources and local officers. I know that some of you, as you were driving around, you probably saw some county law enforcement vehicles that you've never seen before. And when we were a little low on resources, they came into that breach. So I want to thank our law enforcement for stepping into that. Speaker Melissa Hortman, Mark Hortman, and their family dog Gilbert were taken from us in a moment that words cannot describe. And it's difficult for me to meet this moment given the impact that Speaker Hortman had on us as a community. I think we know the impact that she had at the state level. But I don't think people always realize that she had to balance the cities that got her there with that state level effort. And that's incredibly difficult. But she was also a neighbor, a mother, and someone that we grew to love in the community. And I know I was asked to keep this short. It's very difficult when you think of the impact these individuals have had on our lives. But there's a quick story. I remember when I first got into politics, Speaker Hortman, with Speaker Hortman, I had this youth group. And I went to her, and she was a speaker at the time, so I was a little nervous. And I said, hey, I'm starting this youth program, youth mentor program. Can you get involved and can you assist? And she said, you know, I'll do you one better. You guys can come to our house. So we got to the house, and we thought it was going to be a little speech, and then we go help her with whatever. There were snacks. There was beverages out there. And then she sat with the youth for 30 to 45 minutes and explained what government looks like, and not as much politics, but government. She wanted to understand what it really looks like. And then they had a pool table. And of course, the kids couldn't pass by the pool table. So Mark Hortman took his time, and he taught them how to shoot pool. And I probably should have got some lessons because I'm still terrible at it. But thankfully, he taught them. And I think that's what hurts so much in some regards, is that this was a real person. And there were no pictures taken on her behalf because she was doing it just to help this next generation. And out of that one meeting, I'm not going to say their name, there's a young man who is working at a high level in the government because of what she said and how she got him excited. And that's the impact that a lot of people will never understand nor see. The shootings of Senator Hoffman and Yvette Hoffman brought further shockwaves to our community. And the Hoffmans, my youngest daughter, who's 9, has known Senator Hoffman since she was 0 years old. He carried her in his arms, and we called her political baby. And he would always steal cookies and give them to her. And he'll probably steal cookies and give them to her now. She'll take them. She won't turn them down. But I think before that evening, before what happened on Saturday morning, we were speaking to the Hoffmans, and my wife was speaking to Yvette Hoffman. And Yvette had her laughing so hard, and Senator Hoffman was laughing along with them. I was jealous because I wasn't in on a joke they were telling them. But that explains the very vibrancy they've had and just the impact they've had in terms of building a coalition that to this day is still doing work and bridging the gap. So we've seen more camera crews in our cities than we know what to do with. Some are probably in this room. I see some already in this room. The evening news, we know, is going to, at some point, pivot to the next headline. But our community knows that grief just does not run on a 24-hour cycle. Some of you will feel the weight tomorrow. Some of you are feeling it right now. Some will feel it a month from now. Some 6 months. And some of you will feel it years from now. When that heaviness settles, you have my word that within our city of Brooklyn Park and within Champlin, we will be there for you. And I want you to know that when it comes to our city councilors, as city council and mayors, we will continue to be there for you every step of the way. Mayor Sabas of Champlin, I want to thank you for proving that city limits do not define compassion. I think at one point we had some very small differences, but our partnership this past week has made it even clear that regional strength is built neighbor to neighbor, and I've seen how involved you and your city and your law enforcement have been, and I think that is a testament to your residents, and I think that is a testament to the close-knit network between Champlin and Brooklyn Park To Chief Bruley, Chief Conway, Chief Snyder, and every officer who has worked through exhaustion, your diligence allows the rest of us to focus on healing. I want to thank you, and we are extremely grateful for all of that, for all that you have done. At times, people from the outside have questioned who we are as a city when I'm referring to Brooklyn Park. Well, we have an official tagline in Brooklyn Park: unique, united, undiscovered. And really, when you think of Brooklyn Park, you think of a melting pot of cultures, languages, and beliefs, sometimes messy, but always vibrant. But much of who we are goes directly to Senator Hoffman and Speaker Hortman and Mark Hortman and the coalitions that they built. So when you look at Brooklyn Park and you see that diversity that is able to work together, if someone is out of town and their neighbor comes from a completely different background, we have people who will watch that person's dog or babysit their child, right? But they showed us through the coalitions and the work that they did for families and communities, they showed us what it looks like. They gave us a legacy of what it looks like for all of us to work together. So tonight, they'll discover once again the grit and the united spirit that binds us together as one community. We mourn together, we mend together, and in time, we will rise and we will heal together. Or, as Councilmember Shelley Page would say, we are Brooklyn Park strong together. I want to thank you all for being here. I also want to let you know that if folks are having a tough time of it, I completely understand because I know these individuals at a personal level. You can find one of the Brooklyn Park staff members and they'll connect you with the resource to help you get through what you're going through. But I want to thank you all for coming out as a community. It has given me resilience and it has given me strength. And again, I want to thank Champlin for all that you have done, because having a partner that very much understands what we are going through has allowed us to begin this difficult process of healing, but coming together. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Winston. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Sabas. I'm the mayor of Champlin. And before I get started with my speech here, I again want to thank the mayor of Brooklyn Park, Jay, the city manager, Chief Bruley from Brooklyn Park. They have truly been partners, and not that this is easy, but to the mayor's point, having a partner to walk through this dark storm with you has made a big difference. The several times our city manager and I, Jenny Max, had been running down to the state EOC together. We had Brooklyn Park there as a partner when we walked in, and it made the journey just a little less hard, having a true partner in Brooklyn Park. So with that said, good evening. Tonight, we gather not just to remember, but to hold each other up. To light the darkness with our presence, our prayers, and our promise that we will stand as one. Our hearts are heavy as we mourn a tragic loss that has shaken our communities of Champlin, Brooklyn Park, and beyond. This act of violence has left wounds and heartbreak. It has taken loved ones, fearless leaders, and community leaders far too soon, leaving behind broken hearts, unanswered questions, and unimaginable sorrow. To the Hortman and Hoffman families, on behalf of our entire community, I offer not only my deepest condolences, but my unwavering support. Your pain is our pain, and your loss is our loss. And while we cannot take it from you, we will walk beside you, and with every step and grief and healing, we'll be with you. To our law enforcement, the Champlin Police, the Brooklyn Park Police, the many other local agencies that assisted, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, state police, our federal partners, first responders, and our emergency teams, thank you. Thank you for your bravery, your quick response, and for your presence here this evening. You show us that courage is not just in the uniform, but it's in the heart that's behind that uniform. To everyone here, look around. This silence, this unity, that's what matters. In a world that often feels divided and loud, tonight we choose to be together, to be still and to be strong. Through tragedy, people either fall or rise, and we will rise. Not by forgetting what happened, but by refusing to let it define us. We will rise by loving harder, listening closer, and protecting each other more fiercely than ever before. Let this gathering be more than a ceremony. Let it be a beginning of healing, a beginning of change, and a beginning of unity that carries us forward from this night into something better tomorrow. May we honor those we lost by how we live from this day forward, with compassion, with courage, with a community that's never let go of one another. On behalf of all of us at the City of Champlin, our City Administrator, Jenny Max, our council members, Jessica Tesdahl, Tom Moe, Nate Truesdale, and Tim LaCroix, and from my family, thank you, and may peace find us all.
All right. Thank you, mayors, and thank you to Governor Walz. So next up, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've got some partners here from the Hennepin County COPE Community Response Team that's going to walk us through some next steps. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jay, Dr. Smith, and the cities of Brooklyn Park and Champlin. I'm Sunny.
And I'm Joyce Morris. I'm part of Hennepin County COPE.
Yeah. And the community response team responds after a crisis occurs in the community to help those communities identify their internal resilience, gain some skills, recognize that grieving happens in community, and hopefully, eventually, given enough time, move beyond that in a stronger community.
And we would like to talk about not only the services that COPE provides, but to normalize some of the symptoms you may all be experiencing. There are a lot of impacts on our physical health, or some of the symptoms may include shock. A lot of people may be angry, and we may isolate ourselves or seek closeness with our relatives and friends, and all of those are normal. Sleep may be impacted, right? We're ruminating, thinking about what are some of the things that may be coming up in our lives or our loved ones' lives, our neighbors' lives. And we just want to be here to normalize that and let you know that if you're not having any of those symptoms, it is still okay, and there are resources out there. We are 24/7. We respond all within Hennepin County, and we are all mental health clinicians, and we are here to help and provide support for everyone.
And so we're going to do some work together, if that's okay. If I know these people up here and maybe some of those in the front row have been running, trying to address the crisis as it's occurring. And so we're going to invite everyone who's grieving, everyone who's experienced this, to take a moment to just breathe into our bodies and relax our nervous systems. When we're stressed out, we tend to be in fight or flight, and breath can help us reconnect to our higher order thinking and sort of re-regulate ourselves, and thus sort of calming not just ourselves, but the communities that we exist in, the children that we're modeling for, and our neighbors who need us. So I'm going to do something called box breathing. I'm going to lead us through this, and this is a 4 count in, a holding for 4 counts, an exhaling for 4 counts, and then holding again. I'll go through 2 cycles and then give you a chance to breathe, because if you're not used to breathing like this, it's very easy to get out of breath, and that's okay. This is not a required standard thing. This is just a chance to give you space to do something for yourself in this moment. So get comfortable where you are. You can keep your eyes open or closed, it's up to you. And then I'm going to do my best to not go too fast or too slow. I have a tendency to go too slow and people feel like they're suffocating. So, alrighty. We're gonna breathe in, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna hold it, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Take a moment to get into your normal breath, and then we'll do it 2 more times, and then we'll leave. But please remember, we'll be outside at the black tablecloths with resources for you all to access. COPE is no cost to the community in Hennepin County. So back to the breathing. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so next up, we're going to have Chief Bruley and Chief Schneider share a few words, some public safety updates. If you do have questions, or if you need a card, just raise your hands. We've got some folks that'll walk around and pick them up if you do have questions. So feel free to do that. Who's going first? They're doing rock, paper, scissors up here. I don't know who won, but. Oh, Chief Schneider.
Hi, good evening. I'm Glenn Schneider, Chief of Police at Champlin Police. First, I want to thank Chief Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department, for all their work they've done on the apprehension of the suspect, of the killer, quite frankly. I want to take a moment. Largely, you have not seen me out speaking, not my forte, but I do want to recognize the efforts of the Champlin Police Department on the initial call to the Hoffman House. Their life-saving skills they applied that night, along with Alina Health and assistance of responding agencies, truly did contribute to the Hoffmans being with us today. I did have an opportunity to speak with John Hoffman today. He looks much better. He's in good spirits. He wants me to He wanted me to pass along. He appreciates the thoughts and the prayers, and then he told a joke and laughed and said that hurt, so we were done. So, outside of that, we do appreciate the outpouring of support. I know Brooklyn Park has seen it, we have seen it. We are overloaded with generosity, and we appreciate that. Today, you may have even seen one of our local charities showed up with their puppies for Puppy Play Day, which is fun and distracting, so. Yay. Thank you for coming, and with that, I'll give you Chief Bruley.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mark Bruley, Police Chief for Brooklyn Park. I'm going to go over some of the details what happened this past week. And one of the things that I've always preached, and that is about transparency in law enforcement. And I think since I become a police chief, I've put that at the forefront to always be as transparent as I can with the community. And I think it inherently builds trust. As this incident, you've seen that, unlike Glenn, I was out there a lot. Apparently, I'm the glory hound. But the truth is Glenn and I communicated behind the scenes about making sure that our message got out to the community because we wanted people to know as much as we could give them. I will not be able to share everything. You'll have questions, and please ask them, and I will respectfully answer them that I can't because the integrity of the case is what is most important. That is truly what Glenn and I's teams do is we're objective fact finders, is we're supposed to put cases together, present them to the county attorney, or in this case, the U.S. attorney. They're charged, and there's a process to go through, and we want to make sure that the integrity of that case is important, and it's never been more important with an evil human being like we're dealing with here that needs justice to happen. So we want to make sure that we only share information that will not jeopardize the case. So that is why when some things that may come up that we say that we can't talk about, that is why, that it's the lens that we're looking through. With that said, I'm just going to recap very quickly, and some of the things I'm going to touch on are really some of the things that I've seen through social media that have been misrepresented, or people have construed it to be something else and made up their own facts, which is incredibly disappointing. But I'm here to tell you the facts and set the record straight on some of those issues. After the shooting in Champlin, approximately 50 minutes later, a sergeant at the Brooklyn Park Police Department who was going off duty had thought through his head about Melissa Hortman, who has lived in our home, in our community for a long time, and her history of having protesters or people drive by her house that concerned her. And she would reach out to the police department and let us know, like, hey, could you be aware of this? So he thought through his head that how unusual it was to have a senator be shot in his home, not knowing the circumstances of why it happened. Just on a hunch, told a couple officers he's seen in the hallway to go up to Melissa's house and drive by, just check on the house. Simply what we call a spot check. A spot check is just something where we check in on a property, and that's simply all they were doing. The two officers responded up there, didn't know where the address was. The sergeant gave them the address. They were two younger officers, and they went up and did what they were told to do. When they came down the street, they were driving two separate vehicles. One officer is about 15 seconds ahead of the other officer. When the first officer pulls up, he sees a vehicle that looks like a squad car with lights on parked in the driveway. This officer is aware that the suspects at the original call at Hoffman's house was identified as potentially being dressed like a police officer. We also in law enforcement come in contact with other law enforcement a lot. And unfortunately, other law enforcement dress very different. It's very easy for us to identify Brooklyn Park officers or Champlin, but we do come across Secret Service, we come across Capitol Police, and quite honestly, security, dignitary protection, who all tend to wear some level of uniform. The officer was concerned. He pulled into the driveway, exited his car, drew his weapon, identified the suspect, in this case, Mr. Bolter, who was in the front yard approximately 10 feet from the front door, standing there with his back towards the officer. The officer looked and seen that his partner was still about 10 to 12 seconds down the road coming behind him. He held his position at his door, waiting for his partner to turn in, and then was planning on to engage the suspect verbally with commands. Before that could happen, the door opened up, and Mark Hortman was standing at the door. As the door opened up, as soon as it started to open up, and again, I'm just going to let you know that this is on body camera. This isn't just what I understand to have happened. I have watched the body camera and the squad camera and know this to be true. As the door opened up, the suspect immediately drew his weapon. He had a flashlight in his hand originally. He drew his weapon and started firing immediately at Mark. The police officer immediately engaged the suspect and started shooting repeatedly at him as the suspect rushed into the house, went into the door in the house. The officer now joined with his partner who had pulled up and exited his car, took an angle so that they could see deeper into the house as they continually heard shooting in the house. They could see the suspect partially and started to re-engage the suspect inside the house, shooting at him. At some point, the shooting slowed down, and they believed the suspect had gone in the basement, or the shooting stopped, and they called additional resources, including SWAT team, up to the scene. At that point, the suspect was believed to be downstairs. The officers, when they now observing Mark was still in the entryway, made the decision to approach to try to rescue Mark and perform life-saving measures. They could see him in the entryway. Officers tactically made an approach. This is prior to any other backup going. They made an approach up to the door, entered into the foyer of the house. The only person that they could see at that time was Mark, who was laying on the floor. Rescued him, pulling him out, and started life-saving measures with him, which unfortunately were unsuccessful. Other units arrived on scene, and the information that was provided to them that they believe they potentially had struck the suspect with their rounds. The suspect is likely to have gone downstairs, as that's the last place they seen him, and they seen blood on the stairs, believing that he is potentially injured. From there, SWAT team arrived on scene, and this is about the time that I also arrive on scene as I was called in from home. At this moment, the SWAT team had converged on the house and took over the scene. We had a perimeter around an approximate area around the golf course, relatively loosely, but it was believed at the time that the suspect was in the basement. Not being completely confident and with abundance of caution, I made the decision to set up a perimeter going down 610, 252, 85th, and Noble. That is a very large area, as many of you community members understand that. And I put that perimeter because we had no idea if the suspect had gone out the back. Several of the windows had been shot out through the back, and it was unclear if he could have exited out the back. But meanwhile, the SWAT team was still trying to find him in the basement and make contact with him. Ultimately, we brought in numerous SWAT teams and started to secure some of the area around the golf course. When the SWAT team that was in the house made the determination that he was not in there, and at that point they had found, unfortunately, Melissa Hortman, who was deceased inside the home. That is when the police officers, let me back up, I apologize. That is when I made the determination that the suspect was clearly on the loose, dangerous, and I elected to put in a shelter in place. And that's when you heard the iPhones or the smartphones alert to shelter in place until further notice. It was a very large area, but I was also concerned about the extensive time frame that the suspect would have been out of the house where we had not completely locked down the area. One of the areas let me back up. One of the reasons that we do a shelter in place, and we don't do them often, but we do them when we truly believe that there's a real risk to our community. Somebody that is this dangerous, and now that we have taken their vehicle away from them and is on foot, is likely to try to commandeer another vehicle or enter another home, which is why we want you to shelter in place. Lock your doors and hide essentially in your home while we conduct an extensive search. That is the entire reason for it. Some people had reached out to me and said, do I have to? Will I get arrested if I don't do it? It's not something that you're breaking a law. It's really for your safety is why I put that order in place. An extensive search now commenced through this area with many SWAT teams arriving, doing grid searches through that entire area I described to you, which is many, many miles, square miles of homes and golf course that had to be searched that we believe the suspect was still inside that perimeter. At this time, we had numerous detectives showing up to the police department because they got called in based on the shooting incident and investigation and homicide investigation. So our protocols went into place, calling in our major crimes units that were now arriving at the police department and staging into what we call operations room, where they start to set up the operations room for a homicide investigation. That's when I arrived at the police department myself, turning over command to one of my deputy chiefs for the area search. And when I got in there, a very alert sergeant had a SWAT sergeant on scene, had looked into the suspect's vehicle and seen a big packet of paperwork and notes. Recognizing that it looked like a list, he was concerned of what had been going on. He opened the door, grabbed the list, gave it to an officer, said, bring this up to the operations center at the police department for detectives. When that was brought in, I seen the detectives start to look at it, creating a list, and they alerted to me that they believed that they identified some level of hit list involving politicians, and it was an extensive list. Upon looking at it, I immediately recognized that it was clearly a hit list that was intentful on people that are likely to be targeted. The suspect was not in custody, and this gave me great concern. I reached out to the Commissioner of Public Safety. I asked immediately on his cell phone, and this is approximately 4:30 in the morning. I called the Commissioner of Public Safety, and he was already alert of the incident. And I told him about the list, and his response, as always, because he's Bob Jacobs, if you don't know him, is a great guy, said, what do you need? And I essentially told him everything you got. You have to, I'm going to be sending this list out momentarily. I need it out to the State Patrol and everybody else. We have to start securing some of these addresses of those individuals on the list. And that is where we went into a large-scale alerting of lawmakers and those that were on the list, and then trying to go to addresses and secure them. Meanwhile, conducting an extensive 4 or 5 square mile search for a suspect that we believe was very dangerous, absolutely armed, and in our community. These searches are incredibly taxing on an organization. That's why you've seen officers from all over the metro, from Burnsville to Apple Valley to Anoka County to Blaine and everywhere in between. Officers came in to help us secure this area and do checkpoints, which many of you I know have been stopped through these checkpoints. But it is something that we have to do in dangerous situations like this. We can't have a suspect commandeer a vehicle or be in a vehicle trying to exit. Mind you, at this time, we had not identified who the suspect was. We did not know who we were looking for. It wasn't until we started to dig further into the vehicle and grab additional information where we identified a potential suspect, which took us a little while to actually confirm that we believed this was the right person. Later in that morning, as the search continued on, at some point, we started to be less confident that the individual was inside of our perimeter. We had started to release in the media that you would have seen the suspect's identity, that we believed it was a suspect through really, really impressive investigations. The FBI, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, came in knocking on the door with computers and tons of resources and people. And essentially, over the next 3 hours, we turned the entire Brooklyn Park Police Department into an operations center, effectively conducting the largest manhunt the state of Minnesota has ever seen. As this went on, we gathered credible, excellent, reliable information that we had the suspect going into a home in North Minneapolis. We conducted a search warrant at that address, meanwhile keeping the perimeter and the lockdown in place in many of your communities around the perimeter that I told you. Let me explain to you why that I did that. We cannot lift a perimeter and rely on one information, which many times it may be the best information that we believe, like the Fremont address, we believe was good information that the suspect was there. And some of you may have thought, well, if you're doing the search warrant there, why do you still have my neighborhood locked down? Because sometimes the best information can be spoiled by a bad photo, by somebody misreading or not seeing somebody correctly, or we identify a completely new suspect, or suddenly we learn there's a second suspect. And you really don't get to go back and redo it and secure the perimeter. We had already locked that area down, and I had a really big concern for community members that if this suspect was out and had gotten into a home, that there was real concern for safety of community. And so that's why we continued to conduct that large-scale search while keeping the shelter in place for a long time. I know many of you were frustrated that that was really long. I would never put it on for 1 minute longer than needed if I didn't feel that there was really safety concerns. Ultimately, we were able to identify that the suspect was at the Fremont address, had left, and now was free, meaning outside of our perimeter. Once we had confirmed that, that's when the shelter in place ended. You likely continued to see large police presence in the golf course because we were collecting evidence that the suspect had left behind, and that's why that extensive search conducted throughout the neighborhoods and the golf course. Also, through some absolutely incredible police work, we were able to identify that Mr. Belter had purchased a vehicle off the street with a bicycle at the same time, and that vehicle was now what he was in. That took us quite a while to establish that, but it was an absolute critical lead in that case. Ultimately, that vehicle was found by a very alert state patrolman down in Sibley County, near the area, few miles away from the suspect's home that also had a search warrant conducted on it already, but he was obviously not there. Once we had found, on that Sunday, when we had found his vehicle that we believed him to be in, we found evidence also that it was him in that vehicle and that he had left that vehicle. We had sent down 20 SWAT teams, including the Brooklyn Park Police Department SWAT team, down to Sibley County to conduct an absolute ginormous rural area search for an unknown man that was extremely dangerous. Countless helicopters, drones, and personnel searched huge, vast areas of farm fields, ditches, looking for where any leads where this individual could be. This search inherently is incredibly dangerous for the men and women that do this profession. You're essentially searching for a murderer who is armed, fleeing the police, and is in hiding in grass or potentially walking anywhere in many of miles that we're searching. That did not deter the men and women down there. They diligently, for hours, conducted searching, eliminating area and taking away fields where the suspect wasn't. And we did grid searches for many, many hours until we did finally get a lead where an alert resident down there sent in a photo to our tip line saying, hey, I don't know if this is your person, but I just captured a photo of this individual on my trail camera, a deer hunting camera in my yard. This was, quite honestly, a couple miles from where our teams were searching, was a crucial lead in the case, and was clearly our suspect in the picture. We immediately converged all resources, including fixed wing and helicopters, to that area and locked it down, and then essentially brought that in with drones and SWAT teams until we could pinpoint the person with heat signatures, and then ultimately found him, and he surrendered to the SWAT teams. Couple other things that came up that is rightfully so concern for people is, was this individual acting alone? And my answer to that is, all the indications to the investigation at this point is yes, he was acting alone. We don't have any information that has said differently, but that does not mean that that investigation doesn't go on to close every possible door, every contact that he's had to figure this out. It's too important to this community, to the state, and quite honestly, to our democracy, that somebody that chooses to put a list together to go after our lawmakers, people that have committed themselves to public service, that we find out who is involved in this. And that includes anybody that may have helped him knowingly after the fact. All that investigation will continue on as we move forward. The other big concern in all of this that is absolutely a concern of mine I share with you, and that is this person had dressed up essentially as a police officer, really violating the trust of the badge and uniform that I wear today. This is a violation of the trust and the honor that the men and women of our police departments and the police departments across this entire state, that trust that we bring to the door every time we knock on the door, that person has shattered that. And we have to be honest about that. We have to be honest that it's only a misdemeanor if you get caught in Minnesota dressing up as a police officer. That's really disappointing. The second part of that is for all of you, it is okay to ask a police officer information like for their badge number, or if you can see their badge. A police officer in the state of Minnesota wear a badge like this, but it will say what agency they're from, and they will know their badge number. There is not a police officer that's not going to know their badge number. They will also be dressed similarly and wear a patch to identify where they're from. But the most reliable thing you can do if you're in contact with the police and you're not sure if it's right is call 911. Every police officer should be connected in one way or another with 911 dispatch, and if they're not, it's likely a fraud, and you should send out the other police to verify. If the person's like, no, I am the police, well, then you tell them, I'm not opening my door, I'm sending out, the police from 911 said they're coming out right now. So police officers are tethered to a 911 dispatch center, and they should be able to verify that for you. And again, don't call non-emergency. Pick up the phone and dial 911. That's going to guarantee that you're going to the dispatch center or state patrol in your area, and those two agencies will figure that out. I think I've talked too much already, but I really wanted to make sure that I could give you information because you deserve it. This is our community. We live here. You deserve to have as much information about what occurred that doesn't jeopardize the case, and pretty much everything I told you is already out there. I just put it into one package for you. With that, Glenn and I are absolutely more than willing to take any questions that you might have. Do we have any questions? Oh, a couple. I don't know if they're going to allow us to just yell them out.
Hey, don't pick and choose.
Yeah, this is actually a really great question. So the question is, can you discuss how elected officials can feel safe moving forward? Some were given protection and news right away. Others weren't. Some were home, some were not. Some weren't alerted, some were not protected. This is very true. And let me talk about this a little bit because I'll be honest, I've had the same conversation with some lawmakers in my community that aren't necessarily super pleased how this was handled or super pleased with how I handled it. And maybe it's true, but having never been thrown in this circumstances, it certainly was a huge challenge for me and other police officers across the state, or police chiefs. First off, when I seen the list of names, and we knew that we did not have the suspect, my immediate concern was how many homes had this person already gotten to, and if he was outside my perimeter, how many homes would he get to before we could stop him. The names on the list, many of them had addresses, maps, and other things about how to get there. It was my opinion that the names on the list were absolutely mission critical. And they were not all legislators. There was a list of people. That list of people went to the Commissioner of Public Safety, who immediately took responsibility and quite honestly did a great job contacting all people that needed to know, including sending state patrol out to addresses, and really did, in my opinion, a phenomenal job of getting to the people that were on the list. And that was priority to me, and I think that's how it should have been handled. Now, as this information progressed, many lawmakers and others elected had a couple questions. One is, am I on the list? And the truth is, I really believe that if you're on the list, the state, essentially State Patrol or the Sergeant at Arms at the Capitol Police, would have alerted you that you are on the list. That was mission critical, what we had to do immediately to give you have people to be able to protect themselves, and at some point for people to get guarded. People that were not on the list were upset that they were not providing protection. And quite honestly, it was impossible for us to have any more resources available. The Brooklyn Park Police Department did something on Saturday that we've only done one other time in the entire history, and that's something called an all-call. That is where we hit a plectron and say, all employees, 163 employees, report to work immediately. And I'm sure I'm not the only agency that did that. Like, we had tapped out all available resources. There's no way we could have sent people to every legislator's house. We would not have been able to investigate or capture this individual, which had to be done simultaneous to protecting those people. So the people that called me, that were not on the list, I simply told them, you got to leave. Like, you have to grab your stuff, leave the house, and go somewhere. You're not on the list. There's no information that this individual has to do after you. But we also got to be aware that we don't know the extent of this situation. But there's no resources left in the state to be able to do all things, including every lawmaker or politician. And by the way, it wasn't just lawmakers and politicians. There was other people on there as well. There's no possible way that I know that the state was absolutely tapped with just the list that I gave them. And so I know that's not a great answer, but that is how we got to that answer. And I think that's a great question. Great question. So is it why insight on why North Minneapolis residents were not put in shelter in place? Great question. Would not do it based on my information. I sheltered in place the people that I thought the person was in. When we had the person in a home in North Minneapolis, that decision is by the Minneapolis Police Department. Quite honestly, it's really a catch-22 for that police chief, and I think I would have done it the same way. If we do a shelter in place and tell everybody, including the suspect, that we're coming to that house or that area, now we have that person that's been alerted to now act out. Sometimes having a person believe that they're hiding where we don't know where they're at, like in a house, is the safest for everybody. And that's why when that SWAT team came in, they secure that house, they lock it down, contain it, we call containment. Once it's contained, then they know that if he's in there, we have him. And I think I know that's probably why the decision was made, and I think that is the right decision. Oh, thanks. My boss says I have to drink water. Um, A couple of the questions I'm going to skip over. I can't answer them, or I shouldn't answer them, and maybe I'll give you context to this. So the Brooklyn Park Police Department, the day of the incident, had an officer-involved shooting, which means it's a critical incident. That critical incident has to be investigated by the BCA's use of force team that legislation created. And that team did come out and do a separate investigation into the officer's decision-making on whether or not he should have used deadly force against another human being. That's one investigation. I can have nothing to do with that investigation other than support it. It's done independent of me. The homicide investigation of Mark and Melissa is the responsibility of the Brooklyn Park Police Department. Obviously, this was an enormous homicide, partly, incorporated the shootings that occurred at Hoffman's house. Also included an extensive hit list. Really big operation which required me to use BCA, Marshals, FBI, all available resource to help me accomplish it. That investigation continued on under the control of the Brooklyn Park Police Department in great collaboration. I'm not saying in any way, there's no way Brooklyn Park Police Department could have done this on our own. This was a collaboration of amazing men and women from the federal system to the county system to the state system to local jurisdictions, working together like I've never seen in my career, and I'll never be more impressed in what I witnessed over those 43 hours. But with that said as the case evolved, and the suspect was taken into custody, on Tuesday, the U.S. Attorney and the FBI elected that they were taking over the case, which is something, quite honestly, they can do, and I completely support it. It makes 100% that this is a federal investigation. That does not mean that the state cannot charge. In fact, the county has charged and plans on also charging first-degree murder through grand jury, and that is moving forward as well. And they will work simultaneously. The federal system can have criminal charges, which is what you see in the U.S. Attorney file charges. The FBI is doing the investigation for them, which is why everything was turned over to the FBI. And this was done in great collaboration. It wasn't taken, it just made sense for them to take it. And literally now all the documents, all the computers, everything's been moved over to the FBI building, and I have detectives and a sergeant working out of the FBI building still on this case. I say that because now that the case is under the control of the FBI, all additional information is going to be coming from the FBI or the U.S. Attorney. So the question, I bring it up to answer it, is it says today, what evidence was found today? So many of you may be aware that we're back out to do an extensive search in the golf course. I cannot disclose why or what evidence was found. Again, now that the case has been turned over to the FBI, you would absolutely have to wait till the U.S. Attorney releases that. Question here, is there additional safety measures that you would consider for elected officials in Brooklyn Park and Champlin? Again, this suspect, nothing short of a monster, is in custody. We do not, yeah. I believe if he acted in some sort of group setting or with others that thought like him, that the evidence would likely have come up. Is it possible that I'm wrong and it still could come up? Yes, but the truth is, the amount of work that has been done in this case already, I can tell you that there's no evidence that he worked in collaboration with others who were trying to do the same thing that he was trying to do. So is there an immediate threat on other lawmakers that we're aware of? No. Is there the potential for copycats? Absolutely. And is there, should there be some real conversations at our legislation about how much information is released publicly about public officials? I think it should be. And I think there should be some real discussions about how we are handling ourselves and how much we tolerate with people's rhetoric. And as far as local officials getting into Brook Park and Champlin, it's a great question. I don't think this case makes anything different than it was on Friday about safety, because this person's in custody. This is somebody that's acting alone. However, I'm fearful that this is a safety concern that we need to be more mindful of as a society, to be honest with you. Do we have more that we want to talk? The question is about the suspect's wife who was stopped. The questions around, was her passports, cash, guns, ammo true, and why was she released? They're great questions. I'm going to tread very lightly on this because, again, the investigation is no longer mine. It is currently in the hands of the federal government. I obviously was part of this decision-making and was aware of it. The only thing I would say about it is strategies, a couple things to think about. The primary goal was to arrest Mr. Bolter. That was the absolute goal. And everything that was done and every decision that was made was done with that in mind. People can be held responsible for their actions in helping somebody cover up or escape capture. And if that is found that the wife participated in that, I promise you that charges will absolutely be filed against her. Oh, and I apologize. I should have absolutely talked about this one. So the question is about the break-in. As many of you know, and those of you that don't, unfortunately, the Hortman house that we had boarded up, so our operations and maintenance folks did a great job. They went and boarded up the house. We worked with the family to let them get everything valuable out of the home. This is after the BCA had processed the entire scene, so all evidence that we needed had been taken, gathered, and captured as we needed for prosecution. Now the house is turned back over to the family, and we worked with them to make sure valuables are taken out, and we worked with them to board up the place to keep people out of it. We put a camera out front, a big pole camera to cover the front and the sides, and somebody elected to come in through the backyard, straight through the golf course, and take some plywood off one of the windows and enter into the house. Extremely disappointing, having no impact at all on the criminal case. They did not take anything. There's some suspicion it could have been media trying to take photographs of the interior of the home. But the truth is, we don't know. The insulting part is the violation to the family. They've been through enough. And somebody with horrible decision-making at best, or is just a monster themselves, elects to go into a home where people's family were murdered. Again, nothing was taken. It doesn't affect the criminal case in any way, but it is beyond disappointing. And with the national and international attention that this case has gotten, we made the decision that that was not going to happen again, and we essentially put our fencing around the home, which is a non-scalable fence, to be locked so that it puts a stop to the victimization of the family. Really, really good question, and it's on my mind heavily, and that is, how was information being leaked so quickly through social media, Crime Watch, and other sites? And it goes on about being problematic, extremely problematic, very unsafe for the men and women that wear this badge and do this job, because having a house where somebody's in is important, that you have the element of surprise. Making sure that the suspect doesn't know that we're coming, making sure at times doesn't know that we even are looking for him or have his identity. All these things are great advantage. And the integrity of the case. We're not here to try this case in the media. We're here to try this before a jury and get them convicted. And to do that, we want the integrity of the case to be very tight. This was the largest scale investigation and consortium probably in state history, certainly the largest manhunt. When you have hundreds and hundreds of detectives working on it. It's impossible to say how did this information get leaked. I will tell you, because I was very frustrated, and I was visibly frustrated on day 2 on several fronts when information was being leaked, when I knew it was sitting right in front of me. It had gotten to my desk and then gone any further and had been leaked. And one thing, the answer is we don't know where the leaks are coming from. However, we did learn that when we put so many people together, not all people have encrypted radio channels. And encrypted radio channels are like what Glenn and I have, and all of Hennepin County, which means it's encrypted, meaning if you get a scanner, you can't listen to it. It's just jargon because it's encrypted. Your radio can't interpret what we're saying on it. And so it protects the data. What we didn't realize when we did patches and put so many people together that they were using radio systems, our detectives were, and not all of them were from Hennepin County, so their systems were unencrypted, and so we believe a lot of that was people having scanners that were actually able to listen into, and we're not used to that in Hennepin County. We're encrypted, so our information stays very confidential. So we know that is one way that information was getting leaked. We also know that some very irresponsible police leaders were releasing information that is extremely disappointing to me. And they were not my organization. These are people that, not even in this county, that chose to release information that they should not have even been privy to and certainly shouldn't have been releasing it. And that's a second way. But I also, again, other leaks, very concerning, should have never happened. It's disappointing. Great question. Okay, I don't see, maybe one more question. If anybody has a final call or has questions, it'll be final call. So if you have one, raise your hand and we'll take them. There just looks like there's 2 short ones here. Oh, great question. How are you doing and how are your officers doing? This isn't about me, yeah. Doing good, to be honest with you. There's immense amount of pride. When this individual was captured, there was, I would estimate probably about 220, 230 detectives in my building. Several different operations center. We had a call center, we had an ops center, we had a whole briefing room of detectives that were just going out. We had SWAT teams, elements that were split up. This was such a dangerous situation. All our detectives would go out with an element of a SWAT team that would parallel them and then be in the area. So if they knocked on a door and by chance the suspect was there and they engaged, they had an element of SWAT. So I really can't overemphasize the size, magnitude of this operation and manhunt. But when this was going down in Sibley County and we knew that we had them, everybody kind of came back to the police department. And then, of course, there's 20 SWAT teams down there in Sibley County, along with Sibley County and their great detectives and their teams. And finally, the suspect was taken into custody. There was no high fives. Everybody understood that we lost lives. Like, this is a true tragedy. But you could see the pride on the men and women there that they worked so hard to get this accomplished, and it worked out. So they're doing good. They worked tirelessly. And I mean, this operation, when I talk about 43-hour manhunt, there was shifts people took a nap. It never stopped. It wasn't like, oh, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night, we'll come back tomorrow. It went on nonstop. One of the officers, when I walked into briefing, I think it was late Saturday night, I walked into a locker room, and there was like an officer in there, he's a newer officer, and he says, hey, Chief, you think we're going to get him? And it kind of caught me off guard. I kind of was like, and I thought about it, and I'm like, we don't have a choice. And I told him, I said, this doesn't stop. Like, there's no point where we as society can go, well, we'll see if he shows up later. That's not this kind of case. This is a straight up manhunt of an assassin who went after, almost successfully killed 2 lawmakers, and was set to kill many more. And if he's free, there's reason to believe that he will continue his actions of assassinating our lawmakers. It does not stop. hundreds, and I still believe today if we did not have him in custody, we would have hundreds of people in my police department right now diligently combing through every possible lead across the state and across the nation to hunt this person down. It just wasn't going to stop. And I think everybody knew that, and that's why it was so relieving to get him into custody. But the men and women that wear this badge, they're amazing people. Couldn't be prouder of them, and they are doing really well. And then the last question here is, yeah, what can you say about New Hope incident in Maple Grove? Great question. So between, and the U.S. Attorney had talked about this briefly, so between shooting in Champlin of Senator Hoffman, the suspect then left and went over to Maple Grove. Luckily, that lawmaker was not home, and we know that because it's on camera, on her camera. Then they went down to New Hope to his lawmaker's house there, and were interrupted by a New Hope police officer, and then went to Melissa Hortman's home, and that's where the Brooklyn Park Police Department intercepted them. So that's all I can say about that. Again, the case is under the federal investigation, but we didn't even know that when we got the list. We learned that many, many hours later, that was what happened, as we alerted the community, law enforcement agencies, and lawmakers. They started looking at their Ring cameras and putting it together. So that information was learned later, which quite honestly just concerned me even more, because that was clear to me that that list was what that individual was working on, that they were going to go from house to house to house. And while we'll never know the true outcome, you know, and the tragic loss of Melissa and Mark is horrible and will forever live in memories of this community. The interruption, taking away his weaponry, his vehicle, and interrupting that cycle of violence undoubtedly saved lawmakers' lives that day. There's just no question about it. One more question, and then we are done. So it's about the list, and I'm not going to talk a lot about the list. Again, it's in the custody of the FBI, and I don't need them pounding on my door tonight asking why I'm releasing confidential information. But it asked, there were some of them out of state. Yes, there were some out of state. There were some that were not even lawmakers. They were individuals around abortion clinics, abortion doctors, that kind of thing were on there. Some names, I don't even know who they were. I know that those leads are being followed up on. I did not recognize them when I looked at the list, when I called the Commissioner of Public Safety that day. I'm very confident they've been notified and identified now. But the list did go outside the state of Minnesota. So with that, I want to thank all of you for your patience. I want to thank you for showing up here and listening and talking. I encourage you to work with your neighbors, continue to heal. And as always, whenever you need anything, please call Glenn or I or our police departments. Thank you very much.
Before folks depart, I know that the mayors want to share a few closing comments, and then we will be done for this evening. So first up, Mayor Sabas.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. You know, this was so important to Mayor Winston and I. We were at a prayer vigil at Oxbow, I think it was Sunday. And we just said to each other, you know, we got to do something for our communities. And as we meet here at Champlin Park High School, the school that both our communities share, it's so important that we give everyone a sense of community, that we know your lives don't end at 109th, one way or the other. We live in each other's cities, we live in each other's communities. I probably spend as much of my wake time in Brooklyn Park as I do in Champlin. It was Sunday night, I think it was about 10:30, when we were at the State EOC in Blaine, and I was sitting in there with our chief and our city administrator, Jenny Max, waiting to go to the press conference. A moment that I'll never forget in my political career is when Mayor Winston walked in and we gave each other a hug, and it was just that. It was so important that we were sharing this pain and anxiety of this person still out there and not knowing who it was, and knowing that we got him. We got a monster. We got him off the streets. And the whole time, you know, I'd go home and talk to my wife or anyone else, and I had nothing but the utmost faith and the faith in our police, from Glenn and our entire Champlin Police Department. I know they're tired. I know they're taxed. I know it's been a long week, and Chief Bruley and the Brooklyn Park Police Department, everyone that's helped out. I saw these men and those women in action, and true leaders showed up. And so the residents of Champlin, Brooklyn Park, and the Twin Cities, for that matter, can just know that we live in an unbelievable place with unbelievable leaders. So with that, thank you.
So I think it was important that we came here today, and I want to thank everyone for coming out, and then, you know, everyone who worked together for this. I do want to again extend my prayers and condolences out to first the Hortman family. We lost them as a family. We also lost Gilbert, their dog that was adopted, and once again, and the Hortmans reaching outside of themselves and taking someone on who needed it, because when we have dogs, we know that that's a someone, right, for our family. And then, of course, to the Hoffman families as well. I do want to point out that as we go through this process, and I think the vast majority of folks in this room get it, let's use moderate words, moderate tones with one another. Let's respect one another. I think, I cannot remember who said it, but we are all God's children. We are one body together. And I think the more we remember that, the more we're able to heal and come together and remember who we are, not just as cities or a region, but as a community. And there's another piece to that. Remember that as we go through this, that these families are struggling and suffering with an unimaginable pain. And so let's not spread the conspiracy theories. Let's not use the harsh words, because when we do that, that can delay the healing. That can delay a narrative getting out from law enforcement or from communities that allow these families to heal, but also, just as importantly, allow us as a society and a community to heal. Again, I want to say thank you to our law enforcement. I think, of course, we were all incredibly impressed. I think when you look at what happened in Brooklyn Park, right, when you talk about all of the community programs that the police have supported and been involved in, and then you look at fully funding the police to the best of our ability, this is what it looks like, right? I think it looks like when that shelter in place occurred, you had a community that said, what is going on? But they also said, we trust our police department. We trust when they tell us to do this, so we're going to ask these questions, but by and large, we're going to do it. And in Brooklyn Park, it was largely crickets. If you drove anywhere, it was largely crickets, because people really respected that. But it also, when you put that combination together, it leads to the great police work that we saw today. I will close in saying this. Somebody tried to instill a singular viewpoint on us as a community. And when you look at, especially when, you know, I come from the Brooklyn Park's perspective, when you look at all of the diversity that exists within Brooklyn Park, and then you look at the coalitions that Hortman and Senator Hoffman had put together, those are not just diverse coalitions within Brooklyn Park or Champlin or surrounding areas. Those range across the state. And they've helped families, they've helped communities, they've helped people at a very private and personal level that look nothing like the families or the community that they grew up in. And someone tried to write a narrative that's counter to that. But I think the legacy, especially that Hortman is leaving, is that this is where our country is going. That we can agree to disagree. when we think about that Constitution, it's very much about, it was built in disagreement and compromise and understanding and coming from the best place we have in our hearts and seeing one another for who we are. And so that is a giant legacy. I got calls from people in South Carolina. I have nothing to do with South Carolina, right? I got calls from folks in South Carolina, up and down in Mississippi and across the country and the state. And so that is a very real legacy. And that is a legacy that we were blessed to have in our city, that we were blessed to have in our region. And so I would encourage folks as we move forward, don't just think of the legislative achievements. Think of a grand coalition that someone quietly put together with people from all different backgrounds, all different religions, speaking many different languages and of all different socioeconomic classes. And she did that. And that family, her and Mark, did that. So we get to live with that. And that person who tried to instill that singular voice, they failed miserably. They only showed the giant contrast between where that individual thought we should go and where we are going, and we're not going to stop. So I want to again thank everybody. Thank you. So again, thank you all so much for showing up. What you don't know for all of us up here, you think we're helping you heal, you're really helping us heal. So we very much appreciate that.